Alright, today we're going to be doing a review on the Central Pneumatic Airbrush kit. You can pick these things up at Harbor Freight. Not too expensive. Got one here, still wrapped in plastic. When I went out to the store, I got two of them. Try to, give it a 100% review and honest opinion about it. So let's check it out. So here we go with the disassembly. We're going to start off like we normally do. We're going to pull the tip off the airbrush, grab the wrench, and then remove the head. Now the needle, we can pull that straight out the back because it's a cutaway handle, and we can release the needle chuck without taking a handle off. If you look at the head closely, you can see the little rubber O-ring which seals the head to the airbrush body. If you look at the paint cup, you'll notice that the siphon tube does not go all the way down to the bottom. The one on the left comes from a Badger, came from one of my Badger kits that I have. The one on the right came from the Chicago Pneumatic kit. One of the biggest things that I've noticed is the failure to control the paint. We have these blobs at the end of our stroke, which is basically synonymous with a leak in the head somewhere. If you look, you see how it's more or less stippling, and that's after I corrected the air pressure. I started off doing it at 30 and then corrected it to 45. I may have went a little bit higher, but you can see that I was already starting to blow out the center as it was. So 45 was actually still a touch high, and having even that, we can see that these voids in the paint are, especially, here's some good examples of that here, where the voids are. That just means that you got leaks in the head, and that's you get what you pay for. On the bigger side of it, the larger rat tails, when I could actually get the paint to come out, it was really hard to control because it was like the needle wanted to float around in the head, and it affects the accuracy. I could almost never bullseye any of these practice dots, and that's because the needle floats around in the head and just kind of goes wherever it wants, and there's like I said, there's just hardly any accuracy to it at all. You look at this here, you can see how the grading, it's not a smooth transition, a smooth gradient. It's real blotchy. There's a big puddle that came out here, big puddle that came out here. Looks like there was actually a void here and here. The whole thing is just really inconsistent. The same with this rat tail here. Not only does it go up and down, but it's got a little spot here, a spot there. This one here at the bottom, even, there's a big section right here where there's just absolutely nothing that came out. I'm going to try to zoom in on this guy. I don't know if you can see, but this line right here, still like probably three pencil lines thick, but you can see how spotty it is. It's just spotty as it gets, and like I said, that's usually indicative of an air leak in the head somewhere. Where to start? Atomization. Although the atomization was pretty good, I was using some pretty thin paint to start with. No matter how high I crank the air pressure, the airbrush never really sounds like it responds to the change. It's almost like there's a restriction in the airway that maxes out at lower pressures. i.e. the head's chamber is not designed to flow the required volume of air to keep the pressure adequate for proper atomization. Unfortunately, we need higher operating pressures for a siphon feed to operate correctly and achieve proper atomization. Now, construction isn't horrible. It's all metal, has a decent weight to it, but it's chrome over brass, and over time the chrome can delaminate or flake off, and if it flakes off on the inside, these pieces can jam up the tip, the nozzle, or the inner workings. This means you're going to have a bad day. But in all fairness, most entry-level airbrushes are manufactured this same exact way. Then the needle, when I got it, had a gentle bend to it, so I learned to install it with a curve down in order to compensate from this. It also floats around in the head during use. Now this compromises accuracy and is most noticeable during moments of high detail, of course. The trigger is excessively tall. While it's not really that big of a deal, it is comfortable in the hand, but there'll be kind of a learning curve when you go to learn your flow control. Now the head's sealed with an O-ring. Well, not really. Mine had some pretty wicked leaks and are pretty evident when you're trying to do the fine lines and consistent gradients. Now the siphon tube on a paint cup doesn't reach the bottom of the cup, which means you're going to run out of paint with the cup half empty or half full. Overall, I think this airbrush is best suited for someone who sprays inks or something with viscosity close to water at lower pressures where proper atomization can occur. Maybe Mrs. Kennedy's 5th grade art class. Now, if you're thinking about getting this as a second airbrush or as a hot spare, then maybe 20 bucks isn't too much to spend. But if you're thinking you're going to use this as your primary weapon of choice to throw paint into canvas, you probably just end up throwing this thing away. Now, bottom line, although in principle it completes the same task of siphoning liquids from a reservoir and propelling atomized particles of said liquid through time and space, in practice it falls short and offers absolutely no competition to the entry-level $100 sprayers. There you have it. Thanks for watching. I hope you got something out of this. And again, remember, this is my opinion, and it's a buffet, man. Take it or leave it. Later.